Let us begin in a quiet space of stillness where we can rest in the presence of God. Take a moment to settle yourself. Feel the weight of the day gently lift as we draw near to a place of peace, where His love envelops us like a soft blanket. As you sit in this moment, I want you to know that this time is just for you. There is no hurry here, no rush. You don't need to have all the answers, and you don't need to prove anything. It's enough simply to be here, in this space, breathing deeply and letting your heart settle. For in His presence, you are already enough. Perhaps there's a weariness in your soul. Maybe it feels like the weight of the world has pressed itself into your chest, making each breath just a little harder than it should be. You've been carrying so much, haven't you? The struggles, the worries, the fears. Sometimes it all becomes a heaviness you can't shake. But here, in this stillness, you are allowed to let go. You can release the burdens just for a moment and place them in the hands of the one who holds all things together. God sees you. He knows the quiet ache you carry, the questions that linger in your mind, and the restlessness in your heart. And He invites you to come and rest in Him. His arms are wide open, not with condemnation or frustration, but with the gentlest of embraces, saying, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." In this sacred time, as we meditate on His word, allow your heart to be settled in the calm of His promises. In the quietness of your soul, let His love begin to flow like a river, washing over you and making everything right again. Tonight, as you lie down, perhaps there's a flutter of unease. The thoughts of tomorrow, of the things left undone, may still weigh on you. But in this moment, just as you are safe. You can trust in the gentle rhythm of your breathing, in the peace that comes when we stop striving, when we choose to let go of the anxiety that clings to us. Rest is not just the absence of activity, it is the presence of peace. Let us, for a while, just be. Be in the presence of the one who promises that His peace will guard our hearts and minds. Philippians 4, verse 7. Let us let go of striving and enter into this space of quiet surrender. Here, we do not have to be anything other than who we are, His beloved child, deeply known and cherished. As we explore the Psalms together, you will hear words that invite you into the deepest peace, the kind that stills the storms of your soul and calms your anxious heart. These ancient songs of praise, lament, and trust offer us not just comfort, but a deep connection to the eternal rhythm of God's love. You are not alone in your weariness. You are not the first to feel anxious or uncertain. The Psalms give voice to the very struggles you carry, and they remind us that even in our most fragile moments, God is close. His presence is steadfast, His love unchanging. And so, dear one, as we journey through these Psalms tonight, allow yourself to be carried on a wave of peace. Let the words of God's faithfulness wash over you, and may they calm the turbulence within. In His embrace, you can find the rest your heart so desperately longs for.
As we continue, I invite you to close your eyes if you haven't already, and take a deep breath. Slowly inhale the calmness that surrounds you and exhale the tension that you've been carrying. In the quiet of your heart, imagine that you are stepping into a serene garden, one where the winds are gentle and the trees stand tall with roots that run deep into the earth. There, in that sacred space, is a peace that surpasses all understanding. It is a peace that comes from knowing that you are not alone, that God, your faithful protector, walks with you. In the midst of your anxiety, in the moments when your heart feels like it might burst with worry, this peace can still be found. But how, you may wonder, can this peace be real when the storms within feel so strong? How can we feel calm when the world around us is filled with chaos, when our minds race with endless thoughts? The Apostle Paul offers us wisdom in Philippians 4:6-7, where he says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." Notice, it doesn't say that all of our anxieties will disappear. It doesn't say that the world will suddenly become calm. What it does say, however, is that when we bring our worries to God, He offers us a peace that goes beyond our comprehension. It's not a peace that is bound by circumstances. It's a peace that transcends them. It guards our hearts and minds, protecting us from the heavy burden of anxiety. As you reflect on this, consider this simple truth. You do not have to carry everything on your own. You were never meant to. Our loving Father invites us to lay our burdens at His feet, trusting that He will carry them for us. And in return, He gives us peace, not the absence of problems, but the presence of His calming love. Think of the times in your life when you've experienced a fleeting moment of peace, perhaps sitting by the ocean, watching a sunset, or resting in the embrace of someone you love. Now imagine that feeling, but deeper, fuller, and lasting. This is the peace God offers you, not just for moments, but for all of your life. In the Psalms, we often hear the psalmists speak of a peace that only comes from God. Psalm 4:8 says, "In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety." Here the psalmist expresses a deep trust that even in the dark hours of the night, when all seems uncertain, God is the one who grants rest. His peace is not like the fleeting comfort we seek from the world. It is unshakable, eternal. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, let this truth settle deeply in your soul. You are held, you are safe, and the peace of God is available to you right here and right now. It is okay to feel burdened, to feel overwhelmed, to feel like the weight of life is too much to carry alone. But in that acknowledgement, we also find the invitation to trust in something greater than ourselves. When we face anxiety, the world often encourages us to simply push through, to ignore our feelings, or to tough it out. But God doesn't call us to endure life's struggles in isolation. Instead, He invites us to bring our worries to Him, to trust Him with the things that weigh on our hearts. In 1 Peter 5:7, we are tenderly reminded, "Cast all your anxiety on Him, because He cares for you." This verse is a quiet yet powerful invitation to lay our burdens at His feet. God doesn't want us to carry our anxiety alone. He wants us to bring it to Him, to place it in His hands, trusting that He cares for us deeply and will not let us falter. Have you ever felt like your anxiety is something you should keep to yourself, something you should handle on your own? It's so easy to fall into that trap, believing that if we just try harder or push more, we'll be able to manage it all. But the truth is, we weren't created to carry these burdens on our own. Consider the image of a child coming to their parent, holding out something precious but heavy, perhaps a favorite toy or a stuffed animal they're afraid to lose.
When the parent receives it, the child's grip relaxes and the weight is no longer a burden. They trust that their parent will take care of it. So it is with our anxiety. God is that loving parent, ready to take what we offer him and carry it with grace. In the Psalms, we see the psalmists do this repeatedly. They bring their worries to God, crying out for help, but they never do so without also affirming his goodness and faithfulness. For example, Psalm 55:22 says, "Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken." There's a reassurance in these words, isn't there? God is not distant or indifferent to our struggles. He promises to sustain us, to uphold us, and to be with us through every moment of anxiety. This peace that we seek isn't about eradicating anxiety from our lives. It's about finding refuge in God's presence, even while we experience it. It's about trusting that he is working in the midst of our struggles, bringing comfort and rest to our hearts. Let's reflect more deeply on the nature of God's promises. These are not mere words, fleeting or uncertain, but steadfast declarations from the Creator, whose word never returns void. Every promise he has made is firm and unshakable, meant to ground us, to give us peace, especially in times when the world feels anything but peaceful. One of the most profound aspects of God's peace is that it is founded on his promises, not on our circumstances. His promises are eternal. They do not change with the seasons or with the ups and downs of life. Whether you are walking through a time of joy or sorrow, his promises remain secure, a constant in a world of change. In Isaiah chapter 26, verse 3, we are told, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." The invitation here is clear. As we trust in God, our minds, often filled with worry and fear, are anchored in peace. This peace is not fragile or fleeting. It is perfect, complete, and unwavering. But this peace, like any good gift, requires our participation. It requires us to trust him, to fix our minds on his faithfulness. You may wonder, though, what it looks like to trust God with our minds. Our minds can be filled with a constant stream of thoughts that tell us we are not enough, that we are in control of everything, that we must handle it all ourselves. And yet, in these moments, God's call to us is gentle yet firm. Trust in me, and I will give you peace. This doesn't mean we ignore the challenges or the uncertainties in our lives. It doesn't mean that we are passive or naive in the face of difficulties. Trusting God with our anxiety means that we choose to surrender the need for control, the need to have all the answers, and rest in his ability to hold us through it all. It means believing that God is present with us, even when we cannot see the way forward. Psalm 34, 4-5 beautifully captures this idea. "I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame." Here, the psalmist reminds us of God's faithfulness to answer our cries, to deliver us from the fears that often plague our hearts. And in that moment of deliverance, we are told that our faces will be radiant, full of light, reflecting the peace and trust we find in him. Isn't it incredible to think that God's peace can transform us in this way? That even in the midst of anxiety, we can experience a sense of radiance, a quiet, unspoken confidence in his love for us. It's not about the absence of fear, but the presence of his steadfast love, which gives us courage and calm in the face of it. There are many moments in life when we may feel overwhelmed, when the weight of uncertainty or sorrow seems unbearable. And yet, it is precisely in those moments that we are invited to lean more deeply into God's promises. The peace he offers is not the absence of struggle, but the assurance that he is with us through it all. Psalm 91, 1 through 2 is another beautiful reflection on this truth. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. These words paint a picture of complete security and rest, not because the storms around us have ceased, but because we have found our refuge in the presence of God. His shadow is a place of protection, a place where we can rest, knowing that He is guarding us. God is not distant from our anxieties. He does not ask us to figure it all out on our own. Instead, He invites us to come near, to seek His shelter, to trust in His promises, and as we do, we find the peace that passes understanding. But trust, as we know, is a journey. It's not something that happens all at once. It's something we choose each day, each moment, as we bring our worries to Him and place them in His hands. In the process, we are transformed. We learn to rely on Him more fully, to rest in His faithfulness, and to experience His peace in deeper ways.
As we continue to delve deeper into the peace that God offers, we come to a vital part of our journey, the act of surrender. Surrendering is a word that can often carry a sense of weakness or defeat in the world's eyes. But in the spiritual realm, surrender is not about giving up, it's about giving over. It's about releasing control and trusting that the one who holds all things in His hands will care for us in ways far beyond our understanding. In the quietness of your heart, I invite you to reflect on the things that weigh heavily on your mind right now. What are you carrying that you know you cannot bear alone? Perhaps it's a decision that needs to be made, a relationship that feels strained, or the fear of an unknown future. These burdens, as heavy as they may feel, are not yours to carry alone. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus extends a gentle invitation to us. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. This rest He offers is not just physical, but emotional and spiritual. It's an invitation to come before Him with our burdens, our anxieties, our fears, and to lay them down at His feet. It's an invitation to trust that He knows the deepest parts of our hearts, the worries that no one else sees, and that He cares deeply for us. But surrendering to God isn't always easy. We often feel the need to hold on tightly to our worries, to try to fix everything ourselves, to control the outcomes. There's a part of us that feels like if we let go, we'll lose everything. But the truth is, in holding on so tightly to our worries, we only create more tension and fear. The act of surrender is an act of faith, an act of trust, and it is in surrendering that we find true freedom and peace. Psalm 55:22 offers us this reminder: Cast your cares on the Lord, and He will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken. God's call to cast our cares upon Him is not a suggestion, it is a loving command. It's an invitation to let go of the things that are weighing us down and to place them in the hands of the one who is fully capable of carrying them for us. And in that act of surrender, we find a strength that is not our own. We find peace that guards our hearts and minds. Have you ever tried to carry something too heavy for too long? Maybe it was a physical burden, like a heavy box or a bag filled with items you didn't need. At first, it felt manageable, but as time went on, it became more and more difficult to bear. Eventually, you had to put it down, and in that moment, the relief was immediate. In the same way, God invites us to lay down our burdens, to stop carrying what was never meant for us to carry, and to find rest in Him. When we surrender, we trust that God will take care of us. We trust that He sees us, that He understands, and that He is working behind the scenes in ways we cannot yet see.
Trusting God with our worries means that we no longer need to strive in our own strength. We don't need to manipulate situations or control outcomes. Instead, we allow God to work in His perfect timing and His perfect way. Consider the story of the Israelites in the wilderness. They were journeying through a harsh desert, facing overwhelming obstacles. Yet time and time again, God provided for them. He gave them manna from heaven, water from a rock, and guidance through a cloud by day and fire by night. They could not see how it would all work out, but God knew, and He provided in ways that demonstrated His care and faithfulness. In the same way, God provides for us in ways we may not always understand. He may not always provide the answers we seek immediately, but He provides peace in the waiting. He provides hope in the midst of uncertainty. He provides His presence, which is more than enough to sustain us through the trials we face. Surrendering to God is not a one-time event. It's a continual choice to trust day by day, moment by moment. When anxiety arises, we can choose to surrender it to Him. When doubt creeps in, we can choose to surrender our questions to Him. When fear takes hold, we can choose to surrender our worries to Him. And in that surrender, we find the peace that surpasses understanding.
God is faithful. His faithfulness is not just a theological concept or something we hear in church on Sundays. It is a reality that touches every part of our lives. Even in the midst of our deepest struggles, God's faithfulness remains unwavering, like a lighthouse guiding us through the storm. It can be difficult to remember God's faithfulness when life feels overwhelming. When anxiety consumes us, when circumstances seem hopeless, or when it feels like we've been waiting for answers for far too long, it's easy to forget that God is with us, working in ways we cannot see. Yet the Scriptures are filled with reminders of God's faithfulness, and we are invited to hold on to these promises, to trust in them even when the world around us seems uncertain. Psalm 36, verses 5 through 6 declares, "Your love, Lord, reaches to the heavens, your faithfulness to the skies. Your righteousness is like the highest mountains, your justice like the great deep." What a beautiful picture this is! God's faithfulness is not small or fragile. It is vast, like the sky above us, and it is deep, like the oceans that cover the earth. No matter how small or insignificant we may feel, God's faithfulness remains constant. It surrounds us. It upholds us. One of the reasons we may struggle to feel this faithfulness in our daily lives is that we often look for God's presence in ways that we expect. We want Him to show up in the way we think He should, in the timing we believe is right. But God's faithfulness is not bound by our expectations. He is not confined to our understanding of how things should unfold. His faithfulness is much greater than we can imagine, and sometimes it is in the places we least expect that we encounter His presence most deeply. Consider the story of the Israelites in the wilderness once again. They were wandering through the desert, unsure of where they were going, feeling abandoned by God at times. But even in their uncertainty, God's faithfulness never wavered. When they were hungry, He provided manna. When they were thirsty, He brought water from the rock. When they were lost, He led them with a cloud by day and fire by night. God's provision was not based on their understanding or their demands. It was based on His unwavering love and faithfulness.
This same God who provided for the Israelites is the same God who provides for you today. He is faithful to meet you in your need, to guide you when you are lost, and to hold you close when you are weary. His faithfulness is not contingent upon your ability to see or understand it. It is a constant, unshakable truth that remains regardless of your circumstances. The book of Lamentations also speaks to God's faithfulness, particularly in times of hardship. In Lamentations 3:22 through 23, the writer declares, "Because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness." This is a powerful reminder that even in the most difficult times, God's compassion never fails. His love is unbreakable, and his faithfulness is renewed every single morning. Sometimes we may not feel like we can continue. The weight of life's struggles may feel like it's too much to bear. But in those moments, we can rest assured that God's faithfulness will not fail us. It will hold us, even when we feel like we're about to fall. We can trust that He is with us, even when it feels like we are walking alone. God's faithfulness does not mean that we will never face troubles. Jesus Himself said, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." John 16:33. The presence of trouble does not negate the presence of God's faithfulness. In fact, it is often in the midst of our trials that His faithfulness shines the brightest. His love is unbreakable, and His faithfulness is renewed every single morning. As you reflect on God's faithfulness, ask yourself, where have you seen His hand at work in your life, even in the midst of difficulties? Can you remember times when, in the darkest moments, God's faithfulness carried you through? Even when we don't see the whole picture, we can trust that He is at work, weaving His faithfulness into every part of our story.
Life is full of it. Uncertainty about the future. Uncertainty about our health, our relationships, our purpose. In fact, it's one of the most common sources of anxiety, isn't it? The unknown can feel heavy, almost unbearable at times, as if we are walking through a fog, unsure of the next step or what lies ahead. And yet, in the midst of this uncertainty, there is a peace that God offers. A peace that is not dependent on knowing what will happen next, but is grounded in the unwavering truth of His presence. When we face the unknown, we often try to control it. We seek out information, make plans, or attempt to predict every possible outcome. But in doing so, we can become more anxious, more worried, and less at peace. God, however, calls us to a different way, to trust Him with the unknown, to rest in the fact that He knows the way, even when we do not. Psalm 46:10 offers us this powerful reminder. "Be still and know that I am God." This is not just a command to cease activity, but a gentle invitation to stop striving, to stop trying to control everything, and to rest in the truth that God is God, no matter what is happening around us. He is the creator of all things, the one who holds the future in His hands. And when we stop, when we allow ourselves to be still before Him, we experience His peace. The kind of peace that doesn't require everything to be figured out, but trusts in God's ability to lead us through the uncertainty. In John 14:27, Jesus says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." These words are an invitation to trust in the peace that Jesus offers, a peace that is different from what the world offers. The world's peace is often temporary and fragile, dependent on circumstances aligning just right. But the peace that Jesus gives is eternal and unshakable. It is a peace that can settle our hearts even in the midst of the most uncertain times. When we live in a world that is full of unpredictable events, this kind of peace can feel rare. We long for the kind of security that comes from knowing exactly what will happen next, the kind of peace that comes from having all the answers. But God's peace does not work that way. It's a peace that comes from knowing that God is in control, even when we don't have all the answers. It's a peace that transcends understanding, that calms our hearts when the world around us is in turmoil. In times of uncertainty, It's natural to feel afraid. It's natural to want to have everything figured out, to wish for clear direction. But as we seek God in these times, we can experience His peace in a way that only He can provide. He doesn't promise that we won't face difficult or uncertain situations, but He does promise to be with us in them, guiding us, protecting us, and giving us the peace we need to face each day. There is a beautiful story in the Gospels where the disciples find themselves in a storm on the sea. They are terrified, and the waves threaten to overwhelm their boat. But then Jesus comes to them, walking on the water, and says to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Matthew 14:27. In the midst of the storm, the disciples are reminded that Jesus is with them, and in His presence there is peace, even when the storm rages on. What a powerful reminder that even in our own storms, even in the midst of our own uncertainties, Jesus is with us. He walks beside us, offering peace in the midst of the chaos. When the waves of life seem overwhelming, we can trust that He is with us, that He is our anchor, and that His peace will guard our hearts and minds. This doesn't mean that we will always feel peaceful. There may be moments when the uncertainty feels too much to bear, but it does mean that God's peace is available to us, even in those moments. We can bring our fears and our doubts to Him, and He will meet us with the peace that only He can give. So as you rest tonight, allow yourself to be still before the Lord. Let go of the need to control the future. Release your fears about what lies ahead, and trust that God is with you in every moment, that He will guide you through the unknown, and that His peace will hold you steady. Take a moment now to reflect on what you are uncertain about. What are you holding on to that is causing you fear or anxiety? Bring that to God, trusting that He will give you peace, not because the future is certain, but because He is certain, and His love for you never changes.
In a world where everything seems to demand immediate attention, and where instant gratification is the norm, waiting is perhaps one of the most difficult things we are called to do. Our hearts long for resolution, for answers, for movement, but sometimes God asks us to wait. Waiting doesn't come easily. It's not passive. It's not about doing nothing. Rather, waiting on God is an active, intentional practice of trust. It's a season of trusting in His timing, His plan, and His sovereignty, even when we cannot see the way forward. And though it may feel uncomfortable at times, there is a quiet strength to be found in the waiting. Isaiah 40:31 beautifully captures this truth. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. This verse speaks to the strength that comes from waiting on the Lord. It promises that in His time He will renew our strength. But this renewal doesn't happen in a rush. It happens in the stillness, in the moments when we wait with hope and trust in His faithfulness. When we wait on the Lord, we are not idly sitting by, letting life pass us. Instead, we are cultivating a deep trust in God's perfect timing. We are acknowledging that He knows what we need before we even ask, and we are choosing to rest in the assurance that He will provide in the right moment. Waiting is a way of surrendering our own agendas and yielding to the wisdom and understanding of God. In Psalm 27:14, David says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord."
David knew the strength that comes from waiting. He knew that when we wait for God, we are strengthened, not in the way the world might define strength, through self-reliance or control, but in a way that is gentle, humble, and reliant on God's presence. Waiting allows us to trust not just in God's ability to act, but in His heart for us. It's a deepening of our relationship with Him, a recognition that His love for us never falters, even when the answers we seek are delayed. Waiting upon the Lord can also be a time of refining. When we are waiting, we are often in a place of longing, desiring something we do not yet have. It is in this longing that our hearts are stretched and our trust is deepened. Through waiting, we are slowly transformed into people who are more patient, more compassionate, and more attuned to the will of God. We begin to see that God is not just concerned with the outcome, but with our hearts in the process.
The Bible is filled with examples of individuals who waited upon the Lord. Abraham waited for God's promise of a son. Moses waited for God's instructions on Mount Sinai. The Israelites waited for the promised land. In all of their waiting, God was not absent. He was working, preparing, and strengthening them for what lay ahead. Consider Abraham. When God promised him a son, Abraham was already an old man, and his wife Sarah was past the age of childbearing. Yet God's promise was sure. But Abraham had to wait. For many years he waited, holding on to the promise God had given him. And even when things seemed impossible, God's promise was fulfilled. In the waiting, Abraham's faith was deepened, and he learned to trust in the God who calls things into being even when they seem beyond hope. As you reflect on your own life, is there something you are waiting for? A decision that hasn't yet been made, a prayer that seems unanswered. Perhaps you are in a season where the future feels uncertain and you are longing for clarity or direction. In this space of waiting, remember that God's timing is perfect. It may not match your timing, but it is always right. In the quiet moments of waiting, ask God to strengthen your heart. Ask Him to renew your trust, to help you lean into His presence with faith. Allow the waiting to become a time of deep spiritual growth, where you grow more attuned to His voice, more rooted in His promises, and more reliant on His strength. Psalm 135 reminds us, "I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits, and in His word I put my hope." In waiting, we are invited to place our hope not in the things we are waiting for, but in the God who holds our future. It's not just about the end result, it's about the journey of trust we take with God, moment by moment. And so, tonight, as you lie down to rest, consider the areas of your life where you are waiting. Take a deep breath, and as you do, release the pressure to rush or force an answer. Trust that God is working behind the scenes, even in your waiting. His peace is with you in this moment, and He is preparing you for what lies ahead.
God is always present. He is not distant, He is not far off, but He is near, even when we cannot feel His presence. This is one of the most profound gifts we receive in our journey with God, the assurance that He is with us in every moment, through every trial, and in every uncertainty. In Psalm 46:1, we are reminded, "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." This verse speaks to the unfailing reality that God is not just a God of distant power, but a God who is near, a God who comes to us when we are in need, a God who holds us close when we are shaken.
This promise is not just for the times when everything is going well, but especially for the times when we are struggling, when we feel overwhelmed or uncertain. In those moments, God is present as our refuge and strength. The word refuge speaks to a place of safety, a sanctuary, where we can seek shelter from the storms of life. When the winds of anxiety blow, when the waves of fear threaten to overwhelm us, we are invited to run to God as our refuge. In His presence, we find the peace we long for, the comfort that soothes our souls, and the strength to endure. Strength is another powerful word in this verse. When we feel weak, when we feel like we cannot go on, God's strength becomes our foundation. It is not our own strength that sustains us, it is His. We are like fragile vessels, easily broken by the weight of the world, but His strength holds us together. It is in our weakness that His power is made perfect, in 2 Corinthians 12:9. And when we are at our lowest, He lifts us up, giving us the strength to keep moving forward. The beautiful thing about God's presence is that it is not dependent on our circumstances. We do not need to be in a good place for Him to be near. He is present in our struggles, in our pain, in our loneliness. He does not abandon us when we are in need, but draws even closer, offering His help. Have you ever experienced a moment when you felt deeply alone, when the world around you seemed to be moving on without you? Perhaps in those moments it felt like God was silent, as if He had stepped away. But the truth is, even in those times, God was right there with you. His presence may not always be felt in the ways we expect, but it is always, always near. In the quiet moments of your heart, ask yourself, have I truly allowed myself to experience the comfort of God's presence? Or have I been so focused on my troubles that I've overlooked the nearness of His help?
There is a beautiful passage in Isaiah 41:10 where God speaks directly to His people, saying, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." In this verse, God reassures us that there is no need to fear because He is with us. His presence dispels fear. His strength is what holds us up when we cannot stand on our own. And He promises to help us, to guide us through the challenges we face, never leaving us alone in the struggle. Perhaps you've experienced moments when you've felt as if God was silent or distant, especially in your darkest hours. It can feel like God is far away when our hearts are heavy with worry or when the future feels uncertain. But even in those moments, God is with you. His help is ever present, even if we don't always sense it in the immediate. In Psalm 139, 7 through 10, the psalmist asks, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there." This speaks to the inescapable reality of God's presence. There is nowhere we can go, no place we can hide where He is not already there. He is with us in the highest moments and in the depths of our despair. The comfort of God's ever-present help doesn't always come in the form of immediate answers or fixes to our problems. Sometimes His presence is simply enough. Just knowing that He is with us, that He sees us, that He understands our struggles, brings comfort that transcends all understanding. We don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to know exactly what will happen next. We simply need to rest in His presence, knowing that He is holding us through it all. In Psalm 23:4, David speaks of walking through the valley of the shadow of death, a place of darkness and fear. Yet he says, "I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." Even in the darkest valleys, God's presence is our comfort. His guidance and protection are the source of our peace.
we can face the uncertainties of life, knowing that God is right beside us, offering His comfort and His help.
The world around us is full of noise. The constant chatter of our thoughts, the distractions of technology, the clamor of our responsibilities, all of these things can easily drown out the quiet whisper of God's voice. But in the midst of this noise, God invites us to come away with Him, to find rest in the stillness of His presence. In Psalm 46:10, God speaks to us with a gentle command, "Be still and know that I am God." This verse is not just a call to pause in our external activity, but a deep invitation to quiet the noise within, to still our hearts, to calm the storm of thoughts and worries that often swirl around us, and to simply be present with the One who loves us unconditionally. In our fast-paced, overstimulated world, stillness can feel foreign, almost impossible to achieve. We are conditioned to believe that productivity is the measure of our worth, that we must always be doing, always be moving forward. Yet God calls us to a different rhythm, one of peace, of pause, of trust. Stillness is not the absence of action, it is the presence of calm. It is the space where we can listen deeply, where we can hear God's voice above the noise of our lives. When we find ourselves overwhelmed by the rush of life, it's easy to think that God is distant, that He is far away and unreachable. But in truth, it is often in the stillness that we can most clearly sense His presence. When we stop, when we make space for quiet, we open ourselves to the deep, abiding connection that is always available to us. God is not far off. He is near, waiting for us to stop and notice Him. In the Bible, we see this theme of stillness woven throughout the narrative of God's relationship with His people. In 1 Kings 19:11-12, the prophet Elijah is hiding in a cave, discouraged and afraid. He is looking for God in the powerful wind, the earthquake, and the fire, but God's presence is not found in these dramatic displays. Instead, Elijah hears God in a gentle whisper, in the quiet stillness. After the fire came a gentle whisper, and it is in that whisper that Elijah encounters the presence of God. This still, gentle whisper of God's presence is not something we can force or manufacture. It is something that requires space in our hearts and minds to hear His voice. It requires us to slow down, to let go of the need to control, and to trust that in His time He will speak to us in the way we most need. Have you ever felt that gentle whisper in your own life? Perhaps it was a moment of deep peace, a quiet assurance that God was with you, even when everything around you seemed chaotic. It may not have been a loud, dramatic event, but it was a moment of stillness that reminded you that God is always near, always ready to draw you into His presence. Psalm 23 verses 2-3 speaks to this same truth. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. In this beautiful imagery, we see that God leads us to places of stillness and peace, where our souls can be refreshed. It is in these quiet moments that we are able to rest, to be replenished, and to hear God's voice more clearly. The world may be noisy, but in the green pastures of God's care, we find rest. Stillness, however, is not just about pausing our activities. It is about stilling our hearts, our minds, and our emotions. It is about coming to a place where we allow ourselves to be fully present with God, without the distractions of worry, guilt, or fear.
It is in this stillness that we can truly know God, not just in an intellectual sense, but in a deeply relational way. Stillness invites us into the intimate knowledge that we are seen, known, and loved by our Creator. There is a profound peace in knowing that we do not need to strive to earn God's presence. He is with us right here, right now, waiting to meet us in the quiet of our hearts. When we choose stillness, we choose to surrender our striving and our anxieties and to rest in the fact that God is enough. His presence is enough. His peace is enough. As you sit in this moment, I encourage you to embrace the stillness. Let go of the worries that may be tugging at your heart. Allow yourself to breathe deeply, and as you do, invite God's peace to wash over you. In this quiet space, let His presence fill you, reminding you that He is always near, always loving, and always faithful. Psalm 62, verse 1 through 2 says, "My soul finds rest in God alone. My salvation comes from Him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will never be shaken." As you reflect on these words, let them settle deeply in your heart. God alone is your rest. He alone is your peace, and in His stillness, you are held, you are safe, and you are loved.
Stillness, as we have discussed, is not merely a pause, it is a transformative experience. In a world that demands constant movement and productivity, it is in the stillness that we encounter the power of God's peace. And in that peace, our weary souls are made new. When we take time to be still before God, we open ourselves up to His renewing presence. This is not just about physical rest. It is a spiritual renewal that comes from aligning our hearts with the truth that God is in control, that He is our source of strength, and that in Him we can find true peace. Psalm 23, verse 3 reminds us that God refreshes my soul. It is in the quiet moments of stillness, when we come before God in surrender, that our souls are restored. This word refreshes speaks to a deep renewal, the kind that heals the broken places in our hearts and brings clarity to our confused thoughts. When we are still before God, He is able to do the work of renewal within us that we cannot accomplish on our own. His peace has the ability to soothe and heal our emotional wounds, and His love has the power to bring healing to our most vulnerable places. Often we live in a state of perpetual motion, caught up in the demands of the world around us. But in stillness, we are reminded of our need for God. When we stop, when we allow ourselves to sit quietly in His presence, we acknowledge that we are not self-sufficient, that we do not have all the answers, and that we are utterly dependent on Him. And in this dependency, we find a sense of freedom, for when we release control, we make space for God to work. Isaiah 40:29 through 31 offers us this beautiful promise. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. This renewal is not just a momentary reprieve. It is a lasting strength that carries us through the challenges of life. When we hope in the Lord, when we wait upon Him, He renews our strength. And this renewal is not of our own doing. It is His gift, given freely to those who trust in Him. Have you ever felt exhausted, not just physically, but spiritually and emotionally as well? Perhaps you have been running on empty, doing all the things you think you should be doing, but feeling as though your soul is drained. In those moments, the stillness before God becomes the most important practice we can engage in. It is in these quiet moments that God speaks renewal to our hearts. It is in His presence that we are reminded of who we truly are, His beloved children, deeply known and fully loved. It is also important to remember that this renewal often comes in the quiet spaces, in the still moments that we may overlook. We might be waiting for God to show up in grand, dramatic ways, perhaps expecting some life-changing event to take place. But often, God's renewing presence comes in the subtle moments of stillness, when we are alone with Him, without the distractions of the world.
When Elijah was seeking God on Mount Horeb, he did not find Him in the mighty wind, the earthquake, or the fire. Instead, God spoke to him in a gentle whisper. 1 Kings 19:11-12. This passage teaches us that God is not always found in the loud, the obvious, or the dramatic. Sometimes He speaks to us in the quiet, in the moments of stillness. And in those moments, we are renewed, not by our efforts, but by His presence. As we reflect on this renewal, consider how you might invite God into the quiet spaces of your day. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out time of prayer or meditation. It can be as simple as sitting in stillness for a few moments, focusing on your breath and allowing God's presence to wash over you. It can be in the quiet of the morning before the rush of the day begins, when you take a moment to sit with Him and let His peace settle your soul. God promises that when we make space for Him, He will meet us there. When we come to Him in stillness, He will refresh us. And this renewal doesn't only happen once. It is an ongoing process, something that happens each day, each time we come before Him in trust and surrender. When you feel weary, when life feels too much to bear, let this truth guide you. You can come before God still and quiet, and He will renew your strength. He will replenish your soul, and in His presence you will find the peace that will carry you through. Psalm 62:1-2 says, "My soul finds rest in God alone. My salvation comes from Him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will never be shaken." This is the rest we seek, rest that is found in God alone. When we make room for stillness in our lives, we invite God to do the work of renewal that we cannot do for ourselves. Let us now consider one of the most profound sources of this peace, His love. It is easy to underestimate the restorative power of love, especially when we are in the midst of struggles, pain, or emotional exhaustion. But God's love, His deep, unfailing, unconditional love, has the power to heal, to restore, and to renew us in ways we cannot fully comprehend. The love of God is not abstract or distant. It is tangible, it is personal, and it is transformative. It is in His love that we find the deepest comfort. His love is not based on our performance, our successes, or our failures. It is given freely, without condition, and it is this love that sustains us when we feel weak, when we feel broken, and when we feel lost.
In Romans 8:38 through 39, Paul declares, "For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." These words are a reminder of the immensity and unshakable nature of God's love. No circumstance, no trial, no moment of despair can ever separate us from His love. His love is constant, always present, and never changing. Perhaps you've experienced times in your life when you felt distant from God, when His love seemed to be out of reach. These feelings are natural, but they are not the truth. The truth is that God's love is always available to us, even in our darkest moments. His love does not depend on our emotional state or our ability to feel it. It is a constant reality. God loves you deeply, intimately, and unconditionally. And it is this love that has the power to restore you, to bring healing to your soul, and to renew your sense of purpose and hope. Psalm 103:11 through 12 beautifully describes this love. "For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is His love for those who fear Him. As far as the east is from the west, so far has He removed our transgressions from us." These images are so vivid, so powerful. God's love is vast. It stretches further than we can imagine. It reaches beyond our faults, beyond our mistakes, beyond our fears, and it covers us completely. His love is not just a comforting feeling. It is a restorative force that heals us, that restores us, and that makes us whole again. God's love is not merely sentimental. It is active, transformative, and deeply restorative. When we encounter God's love, we are changed. His love does not leave us as we were. It renews us, it strengthens us, and it gives us the peace that comes from knowing we are fully accepted, fully known, and deeply cherished. Have you ever experienced the power of God's love in a moment when you least expected it? Perhaps it was in a quiet prayer, a word of encouragement from a friend, or a tender moment of reflection. These moments, though simple, are a testament to God's love reaching into the deepest parts of our hearts, bringing peace where there was once turmoil and healing where there was once hurt. It is in these quiet moments of love that our souls are restored. God's love is also an anchor in times of uncertainty. When the storms of life rage around us, when we feel tossed about by the winds of fear or anxiety, it is God's love that holds us steady. It is His love that calms the storms within us, and it is in His love that we find the strength to endure, to move forward, and to trust that He is with us, even in the most difficult moments. In 1 John 4:16, we are reminded that God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them. Love is not just an attribute of God, it is the essence of who He is. And because God is love, we can be assured that His love is with us, around us, and within us at all times. His love is what sustains us, what comforts us, and what gives us peace in the midst of life's trials. As you reflect on this truth, I invite you to take a moment to feel God's love surrounding you. Let it wash over you, filling the empty spaces in your heart, bringing healing to the wounds you carry. There is no part of you that is beyond His reach, no place in your life that is untouched by His love. His love is deep enough to meet you where you are, no matter what you have faced or what you are going through. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, allow the peace of God's love to settle over you like a warm blanket. Let His love wrap around your heart, bringing comfort and security. Trust that His love is the foundation of your peace. It is a love that never fails, a love that will never leave you. And in that love, you are whole, you are restored, and you are at peace.
In a world that is always moving,
always pushing us to do more, achieve more, and be more. Rest can often feel like a luxury, something that is out of reach or unnecessary. Yet, God's invitation to rest is not just a call for physical rest. It is a call to rest our hearts, our minds, and our spirits in Him. In Psalm 62:1, David declares, "My soul finds rest in God alone. My salvation comes from Him." Rest is found in God alone, not in our achievements, not in the approval of others, not in the possessions we accumulate or the busyness that fills our days. True rest is found in God alone. And when we rest in Him, we acknowledge that He is our source of peace, our refuge, and our strength. The world tells us that rest is for the weak, that we must keep pushing forward to accomplish, to succeed, to prove our worth. But God's definition of rest is much deeper and more profound. It's a rest that goes beyond the absence of activity. It's a rest that comes from knowing that we are not defined by what we do, but by who we are in Christ. It's a rest that flows from the understanding that God holds everything in His hands, and that we do not have to control every aspect of our lives in order to find peace. The Bible speaks of rest in many forms, and one of the most beautiful invitations comes from Jesus Himself. In Matthew 11:28 through 30, He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Here, Jesus invites us into a rest that is not just physical, but deeply spiritual. He invites us to lay down the burdens we carry, the worries that weigh us down, and to rest in His gentle, loving embrace. Jesus' rest is different from the rest the world offers. The world's rest is often about escape or distraction, but the rest that Jesus offers is about peace, renewal, and reconciliation. It is a rest that is rooted in trust. Trust that God is in control. Trust that He will provide. Trust that He loves us beyond measure. When we come to Jesus, He does not demand that we have everything figured out. He does not ask us to be perfect or to have all the answers. He simply invites us to come as we are, weary and burdened, and to rest in His presence. And in that rest, we find peace that surpasses understanding, a peace that guards our hearts and minds. Philippians 4:7.
Resting in God's presence is not about inactivity, but about being still and listening to His voice. It's about tuning our hearts to His will and allowing His peace to fill the spaces that are so often occupied by worry, fear, and anxiety. In His presence, we find clarity, we find peace, and we find the strength to face whatever lies ahead. When was the last time you allowed yourself to truly rest in God's presence? Not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. It's easy to get caught up in the demands of life, to keep moving forward without pausing to rest in Him. But tonight, I encourage you to take a moment to lay down the burdens you've been carrying. Let go of the need to control, the need to fix, and the need to prove. Surrender it all to God and rest in the peace that only He can give. Psalm 23, verses 1 to 2, paints a beautiful picture of the rest God offers. "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters." In this imagery, we see a peaceful and restorative rest, a rest in green pastures beside still waters. This is not a rest of inactivity, but a rest that refreshes the soul, that renews our strength, and that brings us closer to God. God's presence is not something we have to strive to
earn or achieve. It is a gift, freely given to us. And when we choose to rest in that presence, we open ourselves to His peace, His love, and His renewing power. The burdens of life become lighter when we rest in Him, and our souls find the peace they so desperately long for. As we near the end of our time together, let us reflect on how we can carry the peace we've encountered tonight into the everyday moments of our lives. It's one thing to experience God's peace in quiet moments of reflection, in the stillness of prayer, or in the safety of worship. But it's another thing entirely to live in that peace when the demands of daily life return, when the chaos of the world presses in, and when worries begin to stir in our hearts once again. Living in God's peace doesn't mean that life will be free from challenges or difficulties. It doesn't mean that we will never experience moments of fear, doubt, or anxiety. But it does mean that we have access to a peace that transcends all of those things. A peace that isn't based on our circumstances, but on the steadfast presence of God in our lives. Jesus offers us a vision of what it looks like to live in God's peace in the Gospel of John. In John 14:27, He says, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." This peace that Jesus offers is not like the peace the world offers. The world's peace is often fragile, dependent on external circumstances or our own ability to control our situations. But the peace of Jesus is unshakable. It is a peace that comes from knowing that God is with us, that He is in control, and that His love for us never changes. To live in God's peace daily, we must continually remind ourselves of this truth. We must choose to place our trust in Him moment by moment, even when our circumstances are difficult. We must surrender our need to control everything and allow God to take the burdens that we were never meant to carry. In Philippians 4:6-7, Paul offers us a practical guide for how to live in God's peace every day. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. This passage teaches us that God's peace is not just something that comes to us in times of stillness and rest. It is something we can invite into our daily lives, regardless of what we face. The key, Paul says, is in surrendering our worries to God through prayer. When we bring our anxieties before Him, when we trust Him with every situation, His peace steps in and guards our hearts and minds. This peace doesn't come from our own ability to solve problems or control outcomes. It comes from God alone, who holds everything in His hands. It's important to remember that living in God's peace is a continual practice, not a one-time experience. It's a decision we make each day, every moment, to choose God's peace over anxiety, God's presence over worry, and trust in His faithfulness over fear. This doesn't mean that we will never feel anxious or troubled. It simply means that when those feelings arise, we know where to turn. We know that we can always bring our burdens to Him, and He will give us the peace that surpasses all understanding.
Living in peace also involves cultivating gratitude. Paul's instruction in Philippians 4:6 to approach God with thanksgiving is key. Gratitude shifts our focus from what is lacking to what is already provided. When we pause to thank God for His faithfulness, for His presence, for His love, we begin to see the goodness of God all around us. This practice of gratitude helps to calm our anxious hearts and allows us to rest in His provision, knowing that He has been faithful in the past and will continue to be faithful in the future. Psalm 119:165 says, "Great peace have those who love your law, and nothing can make them stumble." As we grow in our love for God and His Word, we begin to experience the deep, abiding peace that comes from knowing Him intimately. His Word becomes our anchor, our source of strength, and our guide in times of uncertainty. The more we meditate on His promises, the more we are rooted in His peace, which allows us to remain steady even in the midst of life's storms. As you go forward from this time of reflection, remember that peace is not something you have to chase after. It is something you can rest in. God's peace is already available to you, and it is not dependent on perfect circumstances. It is a gift that God offers freely to all who seek Him. So, no matter what you face in the days to come, remember that you are never alone. God's presence is with you. His peace is within you, and His love surrounds you. You can live in His peace every day, trusting that He is in control, that He is faithful, and that He will never leave you.
As we come to the end of our time together, I want to offer you a gentle reminder. Rest is not a luxury, it is a necessity. In the busyness of life, we often forget the importance of resting in God's presence. But it is in His presence that we find peace. It is in His presence that we find renewal. It is in His presence that we find the strength to carry on. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, I encourage you to take one final deep breath, to release any lingering anxieties, and to rest fully in God's loving embrace. Let His peace fill every part of your being, and know that you are held in His love. Tomorrow will come, but for tonight you can rest, knowing that God is with you, that He is in control, and that His peace will sustain you. Take a moment now to thank God for His presence, for His peace, and for His unfailing love. Let the quiet stillness wash over you as you surrender all your worries to Him, and know that He will carry you through each moment of the coming day, offering you His peace that will never fail. Let us pray together. Father, thank you for your peace that transcends all understanding. Thank you for your presence, which is always with us, and for the assurance that we are never alone. Help us to rest in your love, to trust in your faithfulness, and to live in your peace each and every day. May your peace guard our hearts and minds, and may we feel your presence as we sleep, knowing that you are with us always. In Jesus' name, Amen. May you rest in peace tonight, and may God's presence be a gentle comfort to your heart.